Hey everyone, Regal Reviews here. It is Race Wednesday, which means time for my Survivor recap. So, to recap, basically dealing with the vote out from last week, that was a real tough one to watch. And Franny is understandably upset, and Heidi was both in an interesting and tough situation because that advantage in itself was interesting. I mean, being able to control somebody's vote, that's astounding. But then it's also a question of who does she play it on? And even Heidi said it herself. She wanted to make sure whoever she played it on when they got back to camp she that there wouldn't be a lot of tension, like they'd be understanding. And there wasn't. Nobody made comments about the advantage or anything. I was shocked. I thought people would have been going after Heidi after that. Jam Jam, love him. He said, how he's been on the bottom of votes for multiple tribal councils and he's managed to survive, which is impressive. And Carson, poor Carson, he got sick. Apparently, too much peanut butter and jelly didn't agree with him and, threw up in the bushes. And that's understandable, when you're like basically eating nothing and then you get a reward, you basically, stuff yourself and then you pay for it later. So they get tree mail and they say they have to go in pairs. And I would almost be very wary of that because it's very vague. It doesn't say like pairs as in they'll be working together or pairs as in they'll be going against each other. And sure enough, they go into pairs to work together. And when they get to the immunity challenge, it's Caroline and Carson, Danny and Lauren, Jamie and Heidi, Kane and Brandon. I feel like I'm missing somebody. Oh, Jam Jam and Franny. So basically, it's this intense challenge. Like we've seen this a couple seasons now where it's a three-parter. So the first part, they have to go through this net, crawl through this mud net. Simple in concept, but hard to execute because apparently you have to twist yourself to get out of there, and it's very difficult. We've seen people get trapped in there. I'm just like, wow, that'd be very tough for people that are claustrophobic. And then being Carson and Caroline that got eliminated the first round. The second round, they had to race up this rope kind of ladder, whatever, and they had to go across this rope bridge with just 3 planks. And then from there, you'd have 2 groups from there move on. And it ended up being Brandon and Kane and Lauren and Danny that went on. And now it's a regular immunity challenge. Because I thought to myself, because there's only going to be one necklace, so how's that going to work if they're in pairs? So now it turns into a classic immunity challenge where they basically have to balance on this perch, and it's very small and different intervals. It gets smaller, making it more difficult. It ended up being Lauren that got immunity, so congratulations, Lauren, for getting immunity. So now the question is, who goes home? Of course, I feel like, Jam Jam's name, his name's been coming up quite a bit. Right away, it seemed like Franny's name came up, and I feel like because Matt and Franny were such a pair, they might want to get rid of Franny. They also see that she's good in challenges, and she's also very likable. I saw Danny's name come up because he's, again, is he playing a good social game? Not necessarily, but he is good in the challenges, and he's not afraid to make the big moves and go out to look for idols. Brandon's name's also coming up because, again, he's a physical threat out there. So now it's a question of who do they vote out. And Franny is the name that's going around the most. And they have the numbers because they could put 4 on Franny because there's 4, 3, and 3, you know. So they could put that on Franny, and Heidi then decides to tell Jam Jam's alliance that Danny has an idol and that he will play it on Franny. So then that, because I think originally they were going to vote for Danny, but now with an idol in play, you have to wonder, first of all, is Heidi just bullshitting or is she telling the truth? And just because Danny says he'll play the idol for Franny, which he actually did, we did see him say that he was to Franny, he will play the idol for her. But actions speak louder than words. Just because he says he would play the idol for her doesn't mean he'll actually do it. I mean, we've seen that many times. People say, oh, we'll play it for you. Then it turns out they don't. So it looks like it's going to be an interesting tribal council. And even before tribal council, Carson said something to Danny about his name coming up. So then Danny has to wonder, okay, he just promised Franny that he'll play his idol for her. But if Danny's name's on the chopping block, of course he's going to want to save himself. So we get to tribal council and they talk about how this is like a turning point in the game to see who you're basically going to be working with the rest of the time on Survivor. And it's really tough because you have these different alliances and you literally could go either way. And Jam mentioned, how he's uncomfortable because, he's been on the bottom so many times, so he thinks his name's going to come up. And Carson being sick and everything. And yeah, it was nothing too much going on at Tribal Council. I did like seeing Matt at Tribal Council. It was nice seeing him again. So Danny did get up and he played his idol, and he ended up he did play it for Franny. So I was quite impressed that he played it for Franny. And had he not played it for Franny, Franny would have been sent home. So he did play his idol correctly, which we don't see often. We see people play the idols, but not necessarily always correctly. It ended up being Brandon that got sent home. And I have nothing against Brandon at all. I think they made the right choice to get rid of the physical threats. I mean, I feel like Franny is definitely more of a social threat. So is she a threat going forward? Yes. But I feel like there's more bigger threats than Franny is. She's not like an obvious threat, if that makes sense. Whereas Brandon is an obvious physical threat. And at this point in the game, like once the merge hits, that's the point where they want to get all the physical threats out. Usually pre-merge, it's strategic or who they assume is strategic. And then once the merge hits, it's about getting the physical strength people out so that other people could have a chance at winning immunity. And it's not just like a Joey Amazing type thing. So, yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed tonight's Survivor. If you guys want to check out Survivor, it is on Wednesdays, 8 p.m. on CBS, or you can live stream it on Paramount Plus. Hope you guys enjoyed my Survivor recap. Until next time, stay regal.